Thank you, President. Firstly, can I go back, Commissioner, to the answer given to question 32, and it relates to a question that my colleague Alexandra spoke about earlier, as to when Mr Juncker knew about all of this. You've informed us through your reply that he was aware in 2015 about the impending resignation or retirement of Mr Italiano, and that in early 2018 there was a view that he would stick to his decision, and that then a letter occurred on the 21st of February 2018. Just in that middle bit, that early 2018, how do you substantiate what you said in your reply, where you've said in early 2018 Mr Italiano confirmed that he would stick to his decision? How was that established, and by who? Because I think you must feel very cheated in this, Commissioner. You're being landed in this. You're before our committee. You're having to defend all of this. When you had responsibility for personnel, you were kept entirely in the dark. So I think it is important that more clarity is established as to exactly who knew what and where and when. In your reply to question 19, when you speak about there's no legal obligation in terms of the CCA producing multiple candidates or only one candidate, whenever I see that there is no legal obligation to close the procedure, you know, this isn't a PLC. This is a major international organisation where issues of accountability and probity and legality have to be absolutely at the heart of our decision making. So really my question there is, do you not accept that there's a political obligation from a perspective of transparency to do this in a way where multiple candidates are provided for? And my final question, you've spoken about the next Commission and the next President of the Commission. Is it your view that the appointment of Mr Selmary, and I'm making no observations about Mr Selmary, he's a highly competent person, he is someone who had enormous managerial experience, he's a very competent person, that's not the point. But about the future, are you suggesting, in what you said earlier to one of my colleagues, that in some way his position should lapse with that of President Juncker's at the end of this Commission, and that a new Secretary-General be appointed for the purposes of bringing forward the priorities of the next Commission? Is that your view, or is it not?
Herr Kommissar, bitte.
Ich gehe nach zahlreichen Gesprächen.
Well, I'm assuming from many discussions that I've had that Mr. Juncker, in the spring of 2015, already started thinking, when it became clear that Catherine Day wanted to leave and that Georgieva, my predecessor, was preparing a package of officials, and that a replacement for Mrs. Day had to be found, and that he had received assurances from Mr. Italiano that the transfer would take place from DG Com to Sec Gen, but that Mr. Italiano indicated his plan and that he would want to retire within 3 years, tops. Both stayed in contact, and in the last few years, and at the start of this year, Mr. Juncker made repeated attempts to persuade Mr. Italiano to remain, even just for a short period. However, that wasn't successful, and it's only when it became clear that Mr. Italiano wanted to leave that Mr. Juncker decided to immediately replace him without publishing the vacancy. And hence, he involved me for the legal aspects and Mr. Timmermans for the political aspects immediately. We always consider it important that in any posts that we should have several candidates. But we never have a guarantee that we have many that we can choose from. And if one candidate remains after the whole procedure, if one candidate who fulfills all the requirements is prepared to take that post, it would be very unfair to that person to cancel the whole procedure and to start from scratch and seek other channels. And here, one candidate remained and fulfilled all the requirements. To my mind, Mr. Timmermans and Mr. Juncker's, we all felt that Mr. Selmary was highly qualified. He has managerial experience, I agree. So we all agreed then that he was in a position to be appointed. And the fact that we as a Commission are accountable to you and to the Council, to the Court of Auditors and to the general public, there's absolutely no doubt about that. I accept that. And that we have to act lawfully, I also unreservedly agree with that. The question now about Mr. Selmary being brought into a secure position. No, that's not true. No one is sick gen lifelong. Now, it is possible then to change and have other roles as well. So Mr. Selmayer's post doesn't run out, as it were, but like with other high-ranking officials, he has to maintain the confidence of his bosses or his commission president. That applies with a new commission as well that will be in place in 2019. Even more so is that the case. So any high-ranking official doesn't have a post for life, and I think it's a good thing that that's the case. Mr. Vaughan.